Hi, my name's Sean, and today I'm going to be doing just kind of a hands-on, right out of the box review and kind of short assessment of the MARCOLMAR CETME L. So I just picked this firearm up from my FFL, Diamondback Shooting Sports and Police Supply. And I'd like to talk about it a little bit because this is kind of a unique firearm that I had never seen one until I got my hands on it outside of the internet and the debut information that came out during the SHOT Show. First thing we're doing, take this thing, just kind of our safe firearm handling, make sure that the weapon is on safe. It is on safe. We're going to go ahead, remove the factory magazine, and we're going to lock the action to the rear, verify that there's nothing in there. Nope, good to go. So, first thing I notice about this weapon is it is very green. The finish, this is about how they came from CETME back in the late 80s to the late 90s. It's really cool looking. The furniture itself, all very heavy duty. From what I have read and gathered, these are American-made parts that MARCOLMAR makes themselves in-house. They're kind of made out of a more heavy-duty polymer or plastic than the factory ones. So the fit and finish overall, just at initial handling, it's really well done. I opted for the model that has the integrated Picatinny rail, 1913 rail that's been welded to the top of the upper receiver. On the original firearm, they didn't have these. They had this kind of weird clip thing that went over the rear sight tower with a flat rail, and you could stick an optic on top of there. I think for this weapon, when I get it out on the range, I'm either going to slap my aim point patrolman on there or my Seymour kind of lightweight holographic sight. I think that's kind of how those are referred to. So moving into the weapon itself, fit and finish is great. When I purchased this weapon, I was under the impression that it would have like the three-prong, almost early M16 Vietnam weed picker style muzzle device. And it came with more of a traditional birdcage device on it. It's very reminiscent of an M16 A1, but as opposed to, I think the original birdcages have like 5 ports in them. This one only has 4, and like a interesting kind of timing notch at the end. It sits up straight with the, it's in line with the top of the barrel. Out the gate, looking at the roll marks on it, they're color-filled. And they are just absolutely beautiful. They pop out much like a lot of the originals do. I was really impressed with that. Kind of adds a little bit of character there. The controls are really crisp. They're not overly tight, but you could definitely positively hear it engage with a sharp click. Trigger reset is awesome. Not like most roller delayed blowbacks and stuff like that. The trigger's fairly deep. It's kind of predominant with other CETMEs and either Century builds or Heckler and Koch. It's definitely a very heavy duty trigger, but when you reset it, I mean, it's a fairly short reset and it just pops right back. You can feel it. Awesome. Moving to the sights, these are going to be really familiar to those who were familiar with AR-15s. You have your left and right adjustment wheel right there, so you can move that rear sight aperture this way and that. And the front sight post, you have your, it's 4 notches, and looks like you could use the tip of a cartridge or maybe even a nail or some type of tool to push it down, and you can get your elevation, your up and down squared away with that. One thing about this weapon is it is very much laid out for a right-handed person. Me being a lefty, it's going to take me some time to figure out how to quickly manipulate the firearm, exchange magazines, run the action, which would be fun to do. Learning a new skill set like that with this is going to be kind of entertaining, and some of my friends that are also in the firearms world are really excited to mess with it themselves. So, unlike most other CETMEs and HK derivatives, when you have the charging handle up here, normally you'd be able to pull it all the way down and pivot it up and it would lock. With this, no way. There's a large locking mechanism to the rear of the weapon, and that's what you have to press to lock the action to the rear. Not a massive deal, but it's definitely something that I've never seen before. This firearm itself, it absolutely screams European. All of the design elements really in it kind of hark back to the mid 1940s, late 1940s, when you had, I believe it was a Mauser engineer who kind of pioneered this roller delayed design. He went to go work for CETME following the Second World War and developed what would become the precursor to the G3. And basically that's just kind of a scaled down, this is a scaled down version of that. The action, the way it runs is all the same. But yes, it's definitely European. Moving on from there, so the weapon shipped with one magazine. This is an OK Industries Stanag. It's kind of got like a dark black finish to it. And inserting into the weapon, nice, very little play in that. And your magazine release is where you'd expect it to be, just pop it out like that. So this is very smooth. The thing that I noticed, so like most folks probably watching this, they have several Stanag magazines if they're AR guys or gals laying around. So this is a relatively new kind of generic military surplus Stanag I have. As you can tell, it's that darker gray finish that is going to be really common, that we've all dealt with before. What I noticed though is with the standard finish Stanags, is very tight to get in. I'm not going to push it all the way in there because I've had to like hold down the mag release and kind of wrench it out. I believe the manufacturer talks about that though. What I found was I just use older Stanags where the finish is kind of worn off, and you know, as long as they have a good anti-tilt follower in them and a good spring, they're going to work just fine. But the really fresh gray finish Stanags seem to be really sticky. I'm sure that'll wear down after a point because, as you could tell, the inside of the magwell is also painted this cool kind of olive green color. But once the paint starts to wear off, I'm sure it'll slick up and you can get a wider variety of magazines in there. I do not have any Magpul mags floating around. I just don't own any currently. Most everything I own are just the kind of military surplus Stanags. But for now, the one that comes with the gun works absolutely great. If you have older ones, use the ones with a little more worn finish, and it'll be quicker to get them in and out of there, get them seated until that paint is worn down a little bit more, and you know, get a little more playroom in there. The attention to detail on this build is just absolutely fabulous. I know from my little bit of homework that I did before purchasing this that MARCOLMAR gets parts kits in from Spain. They try to get some of the nicer ones, and then they select parts that are going to be in the best shape, and then assemble them. A lot of this firearm is actually American made, so like there's no real risk, I think, in my mind of if you swap out the furniture or something that is no longer going to be 922R compliant. Much of this gun is very all American. Like I said, and they went the extra mile in offering these with this rail that's been added on to kind of make the weapon a little more functional and usable in a contemporary setting. I know that this weapon, in its original select fire configuration, the actual CETMEs, were really only used for about a decade by the Spanish before I think they swapped over to the G36. So this kind of makes it the last of that roller delayed blowback legacy in military firearms that were really widely issued. I could be wrong on that. I'm not a super expert. I'm just kind of using what what I figured out from noodling around on some firearms forums and, information pages. Moving from there, as you can tell, the company even put little attention to detail. They stamped their logo on there. Oh, it's upside down. So they have the gear and the saber in there with their initials, MCM, which is pretty reminiscent of the actual Spanish stamping there. The selector is not ambidextrous at all. I think maybe if the post had gone all the way through, they could have gotten away with that, but that wasn't how the Spanish made it, so I think that MARCOLMAR did that to kind of stay more true to the original. Outside of that, I'm just really genuinely impressed. The welds are really well put together on it. Fit and finish is great, like I said. The coloring is nice and even. When I got it, there were no mars or dings or anything like that. You could tell that it was definitely packaged really safely. The box and the foam that it came in were of really high quality. Certainly could survive, the UPS or USPS or FedEx kind of dropping and kicking and, moving them in and out of trucks or planes and stuff like that. So when I received it, it was in absolutely perfect condition. The company was kind enough to provide this really wonderful operator's manual, and it covers a couple different variants. I think some of these are either like the short barrel or the collapsible stock. I've never handled one of those yet. I've seen pictures of them, but for right now, this seems to be kind of the name of the game. I believe they offer them in tan, black, gray, and of course this green color. But I'm excited to take this out to the range. It locks up tight. Everything seems to function really well on it. And it's an odd duck. Like I said, I have never seen one of these. I've kind of been in and out of the firearms world for maybe 15-ish years. But I've never even seen one in a store. I purchased this off of their website. You could find them on other places online, or I'm sure there's other brick and mortar stores that stock them. They kind of MSRP between $1,300 and $1,500, depending on the if you get the rail or what finish is on there. But you're definitely getting the value for your money. The craftsmanship is all there. You can tell that the leadership of this company really put forth the effort to deliver the customer a good product. I was reading a really nice kind of long review on one of the firearms forums where the owner of the company hopped on there and, he appreciated the input that this writer was putting forth on the firearm. But I kind of want to do something on video and, show it a little more dynamically. I am not a professional firearms reviewer by any stretch. I'm just like a weird dude that likes firearms and messing with them and the history behind them. But for all things considered, if you want something that is in 5.56 that eats regular Stanag magazines, it's going to stick out on the range, and that will kind of be a fun challenge to learn how to run the controls on quickly if you want to use it for any type of competition and stuff like that. I think this is a great option. But that being said, thank you for watching, and once I get it out on the range, I will probably pass it off to one of my friends to have him run some drills or iterations with it, and because he's a much more proficient shooter than I am. But yeah, we're all very excited to get this out there. So thank you for watching, and really excited to shoot this thing. I think they did a great job.